Steven Andress here for thelines.com, playpicks.com. In this video, we will take a look at the Travelers Championship opening odds on Monday ahead of round one on Thursday. We'll also look at John Hasselbauer's tournament preview, his deep dive into what to expect for the Travelers 1 week after the U.S. Open. Hope you enjoyed it. A hell of a finish, hell of a final round with the Englishman, Matt Fitzpatrick, winning the U.S. Open. So a bounce back week this week. Typically after a major, we don't get the best of fields. Certainly not the case this week with what appears to be the tour wars still ongoing. A lot of the big names coming out, and on thelines.com, if you go to our homepage, you will find the Travelers Championship preview from John Hasselbauer. If you're happening to see this video later in the week, closer to the start of the tournament, you can go to the odds tab under golf, under John Hasselbauer. You click on the Travelers preview. And what surprised me right off the bat on Monday is the big names that are in this field. Again, after one of the toughest tests, perhaps the toughest test in golf in the U.S. Open, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, and Justin Thomas on top of the odds board for the Travelers, anywhere between 9 and 11 to 1, depending on where you shop. Patrick Cantlay and Sam Burns round out the top five. Cantlay might surprise you a bit considering his form of late. Hasn't won in a while, but he has been trending in the right direction with some impressive finishes at the Memorial. He had a decent weekend in the U.S. Open. And what's important for this event, he has great Pete Dye course experience, among the top five there over the past 36 rounds in strokes gained total on those Pete Dye courses. Perhaps why you see him so high on the board here, ahead of some other names who have won more recently. In John Hasselbauer's preview, you can check out a little bit more about TPC River Highlands, what to expect from that course, how he breaks it down. It is a shorter course. 6,800 yards is pretty darn short by PGA Tour standards. It is only a par 70, so just the two par fives. The greens are bent and POA blend. We mentioned Pete Dye, the architect. I think what's interesting here are the winning scores of the past few years. Harris English at 13 under par. But before that, Dustin Johnson, 19 under. Ches Reavie at 17 under. Bubba Watson at 17 under. Jordan Spieth at 12 under in 2017. So some scores there past that kind of minus 15 benchmark, where we're going to have to see some putts hold to win this tournament this week. Some birdies or better gain, perhaps a key stat for us to look at. The other thing that stands out to me about these past winners, you have bombers like Dustin Johnson and Bubba Watson, but you also have some pretty good ball strikers there, short game specialist in Ches Reavie. So I think John described it pretty well in his piece here. There is an advantage for bombers on this course, despite it being a shorter yardage. Accuracy is not all that important, but it doesn't necessarily rule out a guy like Ches Reavie, one of the shorter hitters on tour, short game specialist, from going on and winning this event. If you look at the yardage card here, the other thing that stands out to me is that there are a couple of drivable par fours, which should be really fun on this course. Number 2, 341 yards, so maybe the big hitters can get to that one. But number 15, only 296 yards on the card. So again, a chance for some of these big hitters off the tee to reach the green on a par 4. One name that stood out to John is Brian Harman. Bubba Watson and Paul Casey are the two active PGA Tour players with the best career course history at the Travelers, but both are not playing this week. That makes Brian Harman at the top of the course history list this week. He's 50 to 1 to win this tournament, a name to consider. A little bit shorter odds than you would typically see for Brian Harman, even with it being a stronger field than we typically see a week after a major, but his course history is pushing those odds down a little bit at the consensus 50 to 1. Key stats to consider. As we mentioned, it is a short course, but it's not necessarily penal if you're not accurate and you can hit it a long way off the tee. So John is looking at strokes gained off the tee and driving distance. His weekly staple, my weekly staple as well, of strokes gained on approach. But in particular, if you take a closer look, he's also looking specifically proximity to the hole from 125 to 150 and 150 to 175. We mentioned some of those low scores of past winners, so birdies are better gained is a good stat to mix in here. A lot of these greens are protected, so we do want to mix in some strokes gained around the green. And those yardages on the par 4, the drivable par 4 is up to 350 yards, and then the majority of the other par 4s, with there only being 2 par 5s, 400 to 450 is the range that we're looking at here. And for me, as I started my process this week, building my stats model, looking at past 50, past 36 rounds, plugging these stats in, that was important to me. But I also did look at course history on Pete Dye courses. There is something about a Pete Dye course, unique in their layouts, very creative, and certain players play better on those types of courses than others. Patrick Cantlay was a name that definitely skyrocketed up my list, considering past Pete Dye history. So it's going to be a tough decision for me to either take those odds on Cantlay at 16 to 1. Hopefully I can get closer to 20 to 1, be a little bit more juicy, a little bit more attractive to me. But if I can't, then I'm going to have to decide whether I want that 16 to 1 on Cantlay or if I want to get a couple other guys instead a little bit further down the board. Top correlated stats here for this week. If you look at the Travelers rank versus the average rank on the PGA Tour, beg your pardon, the ones that don't matter compared to most weeks on tour, the par 4s from 450 to 500, the strokes gained on par 5s, there are only 2 par 5s. The strokes gained on par 3s aren't correlating for what matters for finding strong finishes here at the Travelers, so keep that in mind. John has a great player spotlight on Keegan Bradley this week. You can read more about that in his post. He has his pool of players that he's considering and what players popped in the top 10 in his model for this week. But let's look at the opening odds here for the Travelers before we wrap things up. Mention that top tier of McIlroy, Scheffler, and Thomas between 9 and 11 to 1. Can find a 12 to 1 right now on Justin Thomas as we record this on Monday afternoon. You see Patrick Cantlay at 16 to 1. Sam Burns, proven winner, 18 to 1. Even in this strong field, you're seeing him start to be above some well-established names like Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, Joaquin Niemann. Sam Burns absolutely has the respect of the odds makers and also the sharp bettors out there in the golf world. 2 names for me, regardless of whether I play Cantlay or not. 2 names for me that surfaced into the top 5 this week. Jordan Spieth, and as we record, you can find him at 25 to 1. Joaquin Niemann at 35 to 1. This is the first week all year that Jordan Spieth has climbed near the top of the rankings for me. I know he's won a couple times this year, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't been a guy that's been on my radar for an outright bet. That's going to change this week. I have bet Jordan Spieth 25 to 1. I will be betting Joaquin Niemann 35 to 1. Considering he's 28 to 1 at a couple other books already, that 35 to 1 might not be around for very long. So that's kind of where I decided to start my card. There's some other names here that surfaced that were interesting to me. Sorry, folks. Tony Finau, Keegan Bradley were also up there for me. I can't justify betting Keegan Bradley at 35 to 1 when a guy like Joaquin Niemann is the same price, a guy like Tony Finau is 40 to 1, when a guy like Sung Jae Im is 35 to 1. I understand the fit. He's done well in the Northeast. He's done well on Pete Dye courses, but I think that number is a little bit out of control. I don't think I'm getting any value there. And another guy that I don't think I'm going to play to win, but I might at this point be tempted to take a top 20 on him or a top 10, is Brooks Koepka. Already seeing a 48 to 1 on him. Hasn't been playing well, but he does have a good history on Pete Dye courses. So if this number continues to trickle and there isn't much interest in betting Brooks Koepka, we might be able to find a good number in the top 10, top 20 market. And I want to point out a great tool we have at thelines.com to help you be more efficient in finding the best number in those derivative markets. If you go under the odds tab and click on the prop finder tool, all you have to do is type in a player's name and you'll be able to see what his odds are at all these different sports books in your state. You can filter the state right here. I'm near Indiana. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, so just a short drive over the bridge to Indiana. You might be in one of these other states. You can click that. So we see his odds here to win the Travelers Championship. But if you keep scrolling, you see top 5, top 10, top 20, top 40. As we record this right now, DraftKings is the only one that has these markets up. A little bit later in the week, if you're watching a little bit later, use this tool. You'll see all the other markets. And instead of having to flip between all your different sportsbook apps on your phone or have a million different tabs open on your browser and having to find all these, it collects all the top 10 odds for a player in one spot if you're interested in betting that. So immediately you know which book to go to get the best odds, because when you are betting golf, it is vital that you are trying to maximize your potential profits. It is a tough sport to be profitable on long term. It's even tougher, damn near impossible, if you are not taking the best available odds on a player each and every week. That is my number one piece of advice if you're a novice golf bettor. So no reason, hypothetically, we come back here later this week, perhaps Brooks Koepka is plus 450 at FanDuel, plus 500 at MGM for a top 10 finish. Go to MGM, take the better odds. It's an easy decision. And if you don't have an MGM account and they're available in your state, click the odds, go up to our legal sportsbook tab, choose Bet MGM, and get a risk-free bet on him up to whatever amount you want, up to $1,000. So obviously you're probably not going to put $1,000 on Brooks Koepka to finish top 10 at the Travelers, but say you want to put $100 on it. If you lose that bet, you'll get a free bet back. Bingo, bango, win-win for everybody. So a fantastic tool on our site. I'm not just saying that because I work there. It's just use it. It's so easy. All you have to do is type in the name of the player that you want. So let's go back to our odds compare tool here. And, a couple real quick names I want to mention before we wrap things up. Mito Pereira at 55-1. He got as low as 50-1 to win the U.S. Open last week. And now he's 55-1 in the Travelers. And I know it's a strong field for the Travelers, but it's not the U.S. Open. It's not the strongest field in golf. So that was the first bet I pressed this week in the outright market, was Mito Pereira at 55-1. He's played so well. I know he missed the cut at the U.S. Open, but perhaps that was a blessing in disguise with how grueling it was. Short course here, he can use his length to take advantage of. He's been so good in his short game as well. I was really impressed with, after the heartbreaker of the PGA Championship, how well he played in his next two tournaments after that. A lot of other guys would have just, not been as mentally tough, maybe just didn't want to play the next week, but he came out and played well with a couple of top 20 finishes and a top 10 in there as well. So Mito Pereira at 55-1 was a quick bet for me. Aaron Wise, again, he's been playing well. He just can't finish. I think he's a very strong option at this point in the season. I cashed him on a top 40 bet for the U.S. Open at even money. A top 20 here, perhaps another top 40 if we can get close to plus money. But I think he's going to be a candidate for me on my betting card as a top 20 bet this week with his outright odds still around 50-1. John Hasselbauer will have his full betting card for the Travelers Championship out on thelines.com on Wednesday. Be sure to check that out. For the rest of our staff bets, you can go to our Discord channel, hit the top right button in the corner of thelines.com. You can go to our free Discord channel, check out the staff bets, check out what everybody else is betting in our golf community. It's a lot of fun. Hope you'll join us over there. And last but not least, free contest for you guys, chance for you guys to win a gift card for the Travelers Championship. Just go to play.thelines.com. You'll see our Travelers Championship icon here. As we record this on Monday, the contest isn't quite set up, so you can type in your email address and you'll be notified. Or if you're watching this later Wednesday, it should be set up for you. A chance to win some gift cards. You can check out all our other contests, free to play, always at play.thelines.com. Hope you'll join us there. It's free. Why not? Try and win some gift cards. Thanks so much for watching. Best of luck with your golf bets for the Travelers.